We got stories. We got volleyball to talk about. We got stuff. So, I got the shirt to prove it. Washington State volleyball. Made my first volleyball trip to Pullman, Washington. What a wonderful time. The Greenies were so much fun. The whole coaching staff, great venue. But I got there Thursday, and on Wednesday, on this farm north of Pullman, some construction crew broke a gas line.
Oh
And
God.
one gas line wiped out the whole area. Moscow, Idaho, Pullman, Washington, 40,000 customers, including businesses. Hardly any restaurants were open. My hotel, beautiful courtyard hotel, pretty modern, right near campus, like almost on campus. Everything worked except for the hot water. The hot water was gas heated. And that's why
Ah,
the restaurants were closed. Most restaurants cook with gas, whatever. Anyway, so you and I always talk about travel adventures, and there you go, huh?
I mean, that is nothing worse, especially when you get in and all you want to do is take a shower, or, sometimes you might get a workout and then take a shower. Truly nothing worse than that. So I feel for you.
Well, I showered Thursday before I went, and then I went to sleep without one and woke up
Yeah.
Friday and got this was cool. The swim coach there, Matt Leach, the head coach at Washington State, former LSU assistant, and they let me swim. I had the whole pool to myself before the women's practice, and they came in.
Nice.
Well, then I got out because I didn't want to embarrass them by going so fast and making them look bad. No, really, like the average college woman swimmer probably swims 5 lengths to my 2, but nonetheless, anyway, so it was
Oh
cool.
my
Washington
God.
State, what a neat experience. Got to visit with UCLA and Alfie Reft. We got to talk about the Olympic experience because he's an assistant on that team and they've qualified, and did a great interview there. Look for the story later this week. And then hung
You
around.
got a good game. My God.
Oh yeah, well, UCLA 1-5, and then I left before the USC match Sunday, and Washington State. I mean, the season was on the brink. They'd lost.
Yeah.
They were even though it's not like they're not going to make the tournament or anything, but they were in danger of just falling off a cliff. Things
Yeah.
are so bad, and they're down 0-2 to visiting USC and come back in reverse sweep. But on Saturday before I left there, I visited with Brad Keller quite a bit, the USC coach, and then had a great interview with Skyler Fields, the USC, I think, superstar who
So
right now
good.
you could make a case for her to be National Player of the Year. The numbers she's put up, and I'll get to that in a little while.
I
But
mean, you could, but it won't come from
and I
it's not
will,
going to
and
be
I
it.
will, I will. So where were you last
Yeah.
weekend?
So only game I had was Penn State, Wisconsin. Because the Michigan Penn State football game was going on, I had to fly into Harrisburg, 2-hour drive. Couldn't leave till 5:30 last night. It was a whole thing, but we got a good game that I was excited about. It was so going into it, we talked to the coaches early in the week, or I guess talked to the staff earlier in the week because coaches are busy with stuff. But on Friday, Wisconsin plays Maryland, and we learned that Anna Smrek wasn't traveling. She got basically every time she goes up to block, she's like this high above the net, so her face is right there. So she gets ball to the face in practice. Didn't travel with them. And against Maryland, what they did, which is their lineup against Penn State, they moved Julia Orgel, who's a libero, to the outside, moved Tammy Thomas-Ilara to the right side, and then Gulje Guchikin was libero. They come out against Maryland. They have one hitting error out of 80 swings. They hit 500. They cannot be stopped. This team is absolutely rolling. And so we're like, oh my God, it doesn't even matter what happens to this team. They can just come out and roll people, which is exactly what happened when they had to go to a 5-1 for 3 games back a few weeks back, whatever. So we come to the Penn State game, and Penn State had come off a win against Michigan, but had lost the last 3 before that in 5, and are just kind of like not down in the dumps, but like really needed a big win. This is a team that also their hosting, top 16 seed situation was very much on the line. If they didn't win this game, they probably would not host based on their remaining schedule. And we're going in like, not that there's no way Penn State's going to win, but like with how good Wisconsin looked last night, not having one of their best, I think the X factor of their season, they look pretty good. And right away, Penn State comes out and looks great. And Wisconsin looked completely out of sorts. I thought the setting location was all over the place all night. The hitters were having problems. They started just chucking up every ball to Sarah Franklin when they could. And Penn State defended so well out of the middle. Carter Booth would go up and digs that no one's making. And Jillian Grimes would just be there, easy eat up, like every time. And Penn State goes on to win in 4. And it was one of the craziest games that I'd seen. I also wasn't feeling great for the game. So a 4-set game being 2 hours and 45 minutes, I was not thrilled about.
Was it really that long?
It was so long. It was the longest game ever. We were at 2 sets in, and I think we were at like 130, 140. And I was like, what is happening? Like, it was just because basically Wisconsin was playing from behind the whole game, and they would come back. And like in set 2, I think Penn State was up 24-18. Wisconsin ties at 24-24. So it's just like, yeah, they wouldn't die.
We talk all the time though about, and then this is true in any sport, especially later in a season, who you play, when you play them, where you play them, what the situation is. So like in the case of Wisconsin, and not making excuses, but they played the night before.
Yeah.
And
horrible travel schedule. Their flight got canceled. They had to bus 3.5 hours over, got in at like 2 a.m. And obviously like no excuses, whatever, but like that sucks.
Yeah, no, it's and so you've got travel. You play the night before, which you don't usually. You're without Schmreck, who's only 6'9" and having an unbelievable season. Orzel moving to outside hitter. Of course, she played outside hitter on a national championship
and
team.
She did really well. Like she honestly
had good numbers. She had and she's been a fantastic libero for them. She's just gotten so good. So not but on the other hand, you knew from watching Penn State play Nebraska that this Penn State team, when hitting on all cylinders, is the real deal.
Yeah.
And you don't want to play them.
No, especially you don't want to play them at home. I mean, it was kind of questionable how the crowd would be just with the football game happening earlier. They lost to Michigan. Fans were not happy. But they came out and the environment was awesome. I thought Cameron Hanna, one of their outside, she's been moved kind of from pin to pin all year, but they've kind of solidified her on the outside. She was incredible. Merzik was really struggling for the first 3 sets. Wisconsin was handling her well. And Cameron Hanna was like, all right, I'll go off then. And, hit like basically 400, had 19 kills. It was so fun to watch that team kind of finally be able to put together a match, because we had seen them put together a few sets, but they just couldn't string together a really well done match. And that's what it looked like on Saturday. So I was really excited for them.
Well, I do have some sad news for you. Some very sad volleyball news, Emily.
Oh God.
Hampton played Norfolk State today, and Norfolk State of the MEAC beat Hampton of the Coastal Athletic Association, no longer whatever the CAA used to be called. And Hampton's season has ended at 0-21. And that's not as bad as St. Peter's of the Metro.
No.
Went 0-30.
No.
So I got to feel so sorry for both those teams. I just can't imagine what it would be like to be a coach of those teams, what it would like to be players to try to come out, to be the sports information directors. I mean, it's just brutal.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's tough for them. But one more game I did want to hit on. I don't know if you got to catch Stanford, Oregon, but another super fun matchup between those two. I mean, anytime you get to watch Kendall Kipp and Katie Baird just go off is an exciting time. But I thought, Oregon was in it and, came back and then just couldn't do it in the 5th. But I loved what Morgan Lewis was doing. She hits over 500, nearly 20 kills. And I was really impressed by Oregon. And I keep saying it, but I think Oregon's a team that could really upset people come tournament time with just how fast their offense is and teams' inability to get them out of system to slow that down.
They're wonderful. They're like so many of the teams we talk about, though, when they're hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And can you do it for 6 games in a row and win the national championship? So let me give you a little Skyler Fields.
Wait. Before that, okay. I want one more nugget. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because I had that same conversation with Kelly Sheffield before the game. Like, we're just chatting volleyball, and he asked me, and he goes, who in the country do you think can string together 6 games? And when you think about it like that, the list goes down quite a bit. And I don't know.
None of them.
Well, like for me, I was like, realistically, who I think can string together 6 games are Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Stanford. That being said, we've, seen 2 of those teams struggle at times, but also be
I would put Louisville in that mix ahead of anybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I think right now, there are like at least, I would say there's like 10 to 16 teams that I legitimately think could make a Final Four, which is crazy. But I don't think there's a lot of teams that can win 6 games.
No, I agree with you there. And I think that, we we've covered it. And anybody else who does that will stun us all.
Yeah.
Because we just look at so many of those teams. They're so good, but they're also flawed. And we see
Yeah.
what. So allow me to give you a little Skyler Fields.
Yeah.
All right. In her last 13 matches, she's had 21 or more kills 12 times. She had 29 against Washington State in the loss. Only 5 times in those 13 matches has she hit below 300.
Jeez.
She's averaging 5.23 kills. She's hitting 299 for the season. So just think about, the other matches.
Yeah.
And this is stunning. She has 544 kills. Her next closest teammate is Tyra Ariel with 174. She has almost 400 more kills than her next closest teammate.
Well, I think what makes that number so crazy, and when you look at these teams that have players that get a majority of the sets, like a Skyler Fields, like a, Jess Merzick, some of these players that just get so many balls, but to have that kind of efficiency while doing that is absolutely unheard of. Like, it's crazy to put up that amount of kills, but to also do that and not make errors, not get dug is so impressive. And I agree. I think she's one of, if not the best outsides in the country, but she's also on a team that, is like kind of barely sneaking into the tournament.
Right. Well, they're 28 in the RPI.
Yeah. I mean, they'll get in, but up until 2 weeks ago.
If you use the RPI as an indicator, they're looking at an 8 seed, and if the 8-9 and then plays the 1, we're talking about in an individual region. That's a heck of a matchup right there to play them.
Yeah, I mean, at USC, when they're healthy and firing, I mean, they're one of those teams that I wouldn't be surprised to potentially make a Elite 8.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so you said we need to talk mostly, or at least a lot, on the ACC, which is just been delicious.
Here's what I want to talk about: the fact that Florida State has a legitimate chance of winning the ACC if Pitt beats Louisville on Saturday. Florida State plays Chicago State, which that's
an independent.
I know, but I'm very confused as to how, whatever, it doesn't matter. They play Chicago State, okay, win. They play UNC, probable win, and they play Notre Dame, probable win. So if Pitt beats Louisville, Florida State's we might win the trophy.
Yeah. So you live in Chicago. You mean you don't go over to watch Chicago State play now and then?
No, there's a reason why I don't go over to watch Chicago State.
Do you even know where Chicago State is?
Honestly, I have literally no idea. But that's the point of that's a guaranteed win. And it's crazy for this team that struggled so badly in non-con. Yeah, they were dealing with injuries early on, but then they go on to beat Miami twice. They play Pitt. Their only losses are to Louisville and Georgia Tech. I think the schedule helped a little bit where, they only faced Pitt, Louisville, and Georgia Tech once. That has to factor in.
That's an important observation. Well, this week in the ACC, Georgia Tech, which has a 13 RPI, plays at Miami, which has a 46. And Miami's beating people, and Miami's tough. And that's a tournament. That's like you're playing in single elimination right now if you're Miami, and 46.
And what I like about the ACC, they got, 8 teams in the top 50. But when you look at the RPI, 44 Wake Forest, 45 NC State, 46 Miami, 47 Duke. So you have 4 teams that are, maybe 2 of those get in depending on how, probably 2 of those get in based on how the end of the season shakes out. But they've got some big matches coming up for those teams that are right on the bubble.
Yeah. Here's your Pitt nugget. So Olivia Babcock is this week's ACC Offensive Player of the Week. 5 times this season, she's been the ACC Freshman of the Week. Just another one of the many great freshmen. Pitt's a fabulous team. I mean,
Pitt's that team every year we talk about that we don't know how they're going to be. We question them, and then they show us that they're really good. So,
no, of course, I went to Pitt at Louisville, which is in the Yum Center, which is where next year's championship match is. And it was a good match. Dan Fisher, the coach, was disappointed in how Pitt played. And because they lost in 4, but I thought Louisville just took it to them. Louisville was just really good. That's going to be a great match. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, Pitt handled Georgia Tech wildly easy last weekend. Outblocked them 9-2, hit over 400, and looked incredible against a very good Georgia Tech team.
Normally, when we do these Zooms, we put our dogs outside because you never know. The mailman might come or the UPS truck might drive by. So they're inside because it's raining here. So Granite, my dog, is here because he thinks when I'm talking to the computer that he needs to come bother me and get petted. So I'm keeping him off camera, but Granite's here. Thank you, Granite. We're good.
Oh,
There's all sorts of matches that matter this week in the Big Ten, but Wisconsin at Purdue on Friday, that's a tough game for Wisconsin, especially if Schreck doesn't play.
yeah. And I think that's a big question. Luckily, they have a week until that game. They're very lucky that game's not on like a Wednesday. Purdue is one of the toughest places to play, I think, in the country. It gets the loudest, especially on the weekend. Wisconsin's coming off a loss to Penn State that they very much need to get back on track for. They didn't give us a timetable for Smrek. Basically, they just said you took a ball to the face. They didn't.
Yeah, when you have a concussion, it's very serious. I hope everybody always takes it extremely cautiously, and I know they will follow the protocol and make sure the kid's okay because it's serious.
For sure. And Kelly was that's the exact approach he had. He was like, these are things that we used to rush, but there's no rush on this. Like whenever the doctor clears her, she'll be back out there, but they have actually no idea. But that's a huge game for both sides, really.
I'm in a situation now and then at a match or even in a practice where somebody hit a ball so hard and so fast, and I'm stunned. I just want to make sure I don't get hurt. From practice. I mean, like you practice, you overlapped one season with Thomas O'Leary. Yeah, and I mean, I would think that your arms as a defensive player would be sore from getting hit by
your arms are sore, your body's sore because she'll just hit you wherever. You don't have time to react to anything. I don't know if it was Tammy the hitter, but like, my God, if that girl hits you in the face, you're done.
Right, and I'm just using that as an example because you see how hard. I mean, there are some players who hit the ball just so hard. Like, I mean, God, we could make a list of the kids who hit it. Long before you ever were around, the Montreal Canadiens had a famous hockey player named Boom Boom Geoffrion. I don't even know what his real name was, but the reason they called him Boom Boom was because it was the sound of the puck when the stick hit it and then whatever it hit next, usually the boards or in the goal. So they called him Boom Boom.
I love that.
We have a lot of boom booms in our game. I mean, there are kids who hit the ball so hard. I mean, like Zoe Weatherington from Penn State comes to mind first. She may hit the hardest, heaviest ball in all of NCAA volleyball. And I mean, there's some kids out there. We could make a list. That'd actually be a pretty fun list, and it's, of who hits the hardest ball. But I mean, on Penn State, too, her and Maruzek.
Yeah, I'd put Merzik on there. I'd put Weatherington. I guess I'm kind of just thinking Big Ten right now. McKenna Walker.
The aforementioned Skyler Fields.
Yes.
Yes.
I would definitely put Walker on there, which Minnesota fighting for their life right now. They go down 2-1 against Indiana, come back and win in 5. They're at 41 in the RPI right now. They've got Iowa, and then they've got Ohio State on Saturday, which, Iowa will probably take care of, but Ohio State, we'll see. Like that's one of the games I have this week.
Those wins are not going to help their RPI. I mean, they've got to win them just to maintain.
Yeah. So it's like they've got to win to maintain. Their biggest test is going to be Nebraska next Saturday on the last night of the season. If they lose, it probably won't do much to their RPI, but they've got a tough stretch here where they have to get wins. Otherwise they are donezo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you wouldn't have imagined that early, but how about in the Big 12? How about last week, TCU beating Baylor twice? And of course, Jason Williams is a longtime coach at Baylor. SMU is way up in the American Athletic Conference. Their head coach is a former Baylor assistant. And to Baylor's credit, he keeps losing assistant coaches and players and somehow gets ready to go.
Well, the Big 12 is also crazy right now. We've got 7 teams in the top 45 RPI. You got a team like Kansas State that just got a huge win over Texas. And, they still have Texas Tech left twice, and then they have Houston. So you probably got to win out to be in. Maybe, I don't know, I guess if you drop to Houston, you could still maybe get in with that.
This week you got Wednesday in the Big 12, Iowa State, which is very much in the mix. You've got the RPI in front of you. I want to say mid-20s.
That's a great question. They're at 33.
Okay, so you got Iowa State at Texas, and Iowa State last year, and if I think this is right, in 2022 is the only team in the Big 12 to beat Texas.
Baylor
goes to Kansas, which is also one of those teams that's up and down, and TCU at Houston, which would be great. And then Yeah, that's tempting. It's only 4 hours drive, but I'll tell you where I'll get to. I'm going. I'll get one more big. I'll forget the Big 12 matches.
Kansas,
So
BYU.
right, yeah, Friday,
Hosting.
Iowa State at Houston, and then Kansas at BYU, and
It's
that's a sneak
hosting.
game. Yeah, for
Yeah.
BYU, 13th, and they stayed the only team in our other than Nebraska, Wisconsin, and BYU were the only three teams that stayed the same. I'm sorry, not Wisconsin, just Nebraska at 1 and BYU at 13 were the only teams that stayed the same in our Super 16 this week.
Yeah. Well, and for Kansas and BYU, they're looking to host through those first 2 rounds, and it's kind of, it might be whoever wins that game.
Very much so. Yeah. So the Sun Belt Conference tournament is in Foley, Alabama, which is, for those of you who want to think about it geographically, sort of, it's east of Mobile, west of Pensacola. It's got one of the great outlet malls in all of America, and it's just north of
those
Mobile.
cities to me mean nothing. I don't know where that is.
It's just north of where they have the NCAA beach championships. Anyway, it's about a 4-hour drive from here, and the quarterfinals on Friday. I think I'm going to drive over because it's 4 hours, and I can see 8 Sun Belt teams, including Texas State, Coastal Carolina, who's having a great year, Troy having a great year.
Jenny going to be there?
She has to win on Wednesday to get into Thursday. So
all right.
Go Southern Miss. Got to see my pal. I just can't get out of here on Wednesday and go. So I'm just making a long day. But where do you go this week?
This is my last big travel week, and this is a wild one. So I have Ohio State at Illinois on Wednesday. Not many postseason implications there. Both teams are out, but could be a good game. We'll see in terms of standings. And, Illinois has been doing well this season. Ohio State's coming off a tough loss. There Wednesday. Head to Minneapolis for Ohio State, Minnesota on Saturday, which again, Minnesota has to win to stay in tournament contention. And then I take a 5 a.m. flight on Sunday to Dallas to College Station for a 1 p.m. game featuring Tennessee at Texas A&M. So I will be getting into College Station around 10, maybe can get there by 10:30, 11. So I will be doing my makeup on the plane and hopefully making my Tennessee Texas A&M game. If not, they have someone on standby.
And what's cool is you're working with Paul Sunderland at that one, right?
Yeah. I'm excited.
That's great. We didn't mention, speaking of the SEC, the 2 big matches are Sunday, Missouri at Kentucky and Florida at Arkansas. Important matches for all 4 teams. Dawn Sullivan, who came from UNLV, and the job that she's done at Missouri. Now, we'll have a Coach of the Year in our postseason awards, and I almost never think that you should vote for a first-year coach because there's just so many circumstances, the boost, things change. But she is one of the many first-year coaches who is just doing a fantastic job. Yeah. Jason Mansfield at K-State and JJ Van Deel at Arizona State, just quickly off the top of my head, what great jobs they're all doing. But what Missouri has they lost a good player to Florida who ended up getting hurt, the middle.
They returned 1 starter. They lost 10 players. Yeah. They returned 1 starter. They have 11 newcomers, 7 transfers.
Didn't you have them once this year?
Yeah. Then that's kind of the only reason I know all of this. They finish last in the SEC. They only win 2 SEC games the entire season. They come out this year and look completely different. Even the players that did return, really just the 1 starter, Iliff is an absolute baller this year, like so much better. It's so impressive what this team's done in literally just 1 season. And I think Dawn Sullivan has done an incredible job with them. She's big into mindset and, goals and just values. And the team really latched onto that. And it came together so well for a team that now is, absolutely getting into the tournament and is like top 30 in the RPI.
No, that's astounding. Just absolutely astounding. Kentucky, we probably don't talk about enough. Yep. Kentucky has just been lights out for 3 weeks. Everybody's back and healthy. When Reagan Rutherford is there, Brooklyn DeLay just having a breakout season. They've got a legitimately really good setter, a legitimately really good libero, nice pieces. And Craig Skinner, year in and year out, just does a great job. Part of that.
Well, and the way they started the year, they were bad, and now they're rolling.
You saw him right when Rutherford got hurt. Had just gotten hurt, right?
Yeah, I had him. So I had him against Nebraska pretty early on. They looked I don't want to say horrific, but they looked really bad. And then I saw them again at Georgia when Rutherford had just gotten hurt. But in the team, it was honestly a really fun game. It went to 5. It was against Georgia, who was really good, and they ended up winning that. And that was kind of like the transition point of them starting to finally get on the right track. And they look incredible right now.
Horrific is 0-21 Hampton and 0-30 St. Peter's.
Okay.
All right. So Wednesday, among the other things that we'll have is a conference by conference breakdown. On Thursday, I'll have the Power Fives, but everybody else on Wednesday, who's in, who's out, what their tournament situation looks like. So I've been doing that all day today, and just ran out of gas, and luckily we were able to do this. So this was fabulous. Thanks everybody for watching and putting up with us. And it's always fun for us to break it down. And Em, travel safe. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Hopefully we get through it.